From the beginning, I had a really strong sense of who I wanted to build this world with, and honestly, who I wanted to learn from, because I was going to be the least experienced person on this set. You're very aware of every individual who is there making it with you, because you only get this finite amount of time to do it.
With a spectacular cast, stunning costumes and set design, beautiful cinematography, and gorgeous locations, Bonjour Tristesse shares all of the hallmarks of the Merchant Ivory classics that delighted audiences for years. Originally published in 1954, Francoise Sagan's novel, Bonjour Tristesse, was an overnight sensation. But for every rave review, there was an equal number of critics shocked by a casual attitude towards a young woman's sexual awakening. In Otto Preminger's 1958 film Adaptation, the focus was on the sensational. But thankfully, visionary producers pushing for a new adaptation recognized the need for a woman's voice and recruited Canadian writer Durga Chew-Bose to work on the screenplay. Having found someone with just the right approach to bring this new version to life, Chew-Bose was asked to stay on board to direct the film as well. The result is a debut film of remarkable depth and sensitivity that premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival and which is opening in theaters everywhere. Please join our conversation with first-time screenwriter and director Durga Chew-Bose about her remarkable film, Bonjour Tristesse, on Inside the Arthouse, starting now.
Hi, my name is Greg Lumley.
And I'm Raphael Spark.
And welcome to another episode of Inside the Arthouse. Today we are joined by Durga Chew-Bose, the director of Bonjour Tristesse.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful to have you here. My first question is, if someone were to look you up, as I did, it indicates that you're a writer and quite an accomplished writer. And this is your first feature. What I also found so interesting was that this is effectively a remake of a film that was done from a source material of a novel back in the 50s. The original film directed by Otto Preminger and with David Niven. And the question is, how did you find the material? And did you find it from the book? Did you find it from the film? And how did this evolve for you?
Well, it's now nearing almost 10 years ago that this all started.
Wow.
My producers, Katie Bird-Nolan and Lindsay Capscott, had read my book of essays that had come out, and they were really hoping to adapt Francoise Sagan's Bonjour Tristesse, very separate from the Otto Preminger version, which we all adore. And basically, when they had reached out to Édition Juliard, who are the publishers, they kind of said, fine, attach a writer that we will approve, and then we can start talking about the rights, basically. So they had read my book, and for whatever reason that is still a mystery to me, they cold emailed me. And they are independent film producers, so they are not risk averse.
They're independent? Yes, right.
They're independent. They're dreamers. They really do have a vision, and they are persistent, because when they first reached out to me, I didn't ignore the email, but I really didn't see the fit or the vision. And I was almost a bit confused by them thinking I'm up to the task, sort of. But they followed up, and I think a combination of them feeling that gut instinct, which I learned is very sort of the bedrock of how they work. They're very intuitive producers, mixed a little bit with my resistance, like not really seeing the match. That was ultimately a seductive pair that drew me to it. Right. Yeah. And so I met with them. I was actually at TIFF in Toronto covering other films as a journalist. And I met with them in between screenings, and they sort of spoke to me about why they thought my voice would make sense for this contemporary adaptation. And they told me why they love Francoise Sagan's book so much. We took it step by step. We brought my name to the publishers and to Francoise Sagan's son, Denis Westhoff, who is an executive producer on the film and has followed along and visited us on set and loves the film. And, it was like, steps of approvals and approving a script, approving an outline. Part of it was I decided to revisit the book, which I hadn't read in a very long time. And I kind of read it with a very open mind and decided to sort of let it happen to me, which ended up being a great lesson for directing in all aspects of making a movie, not forcing anything. And I'm a very visual writer. I've always been a very visual writer. And so when certain images in the book, less so the ideas, would strike me, I just kind of wrote them down or dog-eared my book because there was something beyond my powers saying, focus on this image or focus on this line. And slowly my adaptation came alive by just sort of kind of being attracted to tertiary characters in her novel that I felt here's an opportunity to give them more meat. Like I wanted my version to be additive. How I've always felt with adaptations as an audience member is I love when they feel like they're part of a stream or a continuation, like it's a continuation of the novel, and it's in some way shares some of the DNA of Preminger's version. I'm not reinventing anything, but I do feel like I stayed true to my voice as a writer, and that was what made it our adaptation. So yeah, and I think like you're probably so familiar with speaking with directors, making a film like this is just a series of false starts, And throughout that, we would lose financing, send out to directors. And I don't think we ever lost hope. We learned that something was happening outside our control, sort of.
Well, quite literally in the case of...
Yeah, quite literally.
Producing an film feels like a free fall, for sure.
It does feel like a free fall.
Yeah.
It does feel like you're jumping out of a plane. I think what it did was it was an opportunity for my producers to get to know me. They'd worked with first-time directors before, and I think they saw some of my instincts, my behaviors, I'm so compulsive with IMDb. I'm like obsessed with costume designers and production designers. And so I would text them like, oh, we need Olivier Assayas's production designer for this film because he's so good with clutter and lived in homes. And I think the way that I was talking about it, they felt like, oh, this is how a director works. They're building this world beyond the page. They're thinking about collaborators.
That's incredible that your producers that they would see. It's like seeing the statue in the stone in a way. I mean, they really they kind of really they intuited you as a writer and then have intuited you as a director as well.
Yeah, and I'm really happy you noted that because I truly think like, directors are perceived as like crazy and big dreamers and are so courageous. But I truly think independent film producers are built differently than the rest of us because that's courage.
It is.
Wow, I love it. A director speaking up for producers.
It's really great.
But you're right. I mean, to believe that a project needs to happen and then to push it through is really, truly something.
It's really, truly something. Yeah, and to make it happen.
And then to have the trust with first-time filmmakers. As well.
Trust. That's a big one too.
But this is a fun one for us because I don't think we've really necessarily talked about an adaptation, or certainly not an adaptation of such a familiar, source material. We've been doing this for about 7-8 months.
Yeah, we're still new. We're still new too, right? I had a vision that Greg could one day be a podcaster. Yes.
No, but adaptation is a whole kind of thing because are you being true to the narrative of the source material, or are you trying to find a way of what is the author really trying to talk about, and how do I translate that into a different medium and into a different time period?
It's really scary IP too because it's such a beloved book,
Right, it's weighted. Yes, right. Yeah.
It's the book that a lot of people first read in high school. It's like assigned to them, and then it's also part of the whole other category that really kind of alters people at a specific time in their lives. It's in the coming of age canon when it comes to certain books, And then at the time, the writer herself, Francoise Sagan, was extraordinarily famous. She was so young when she wrote this, at the time, very scandalous book. And then when it was adapted by Otto Preminger with Gene Seberg and Deborah Kerr and David Niven, that in itself has its own lore to it. Mm-hmm. So I think again, credit to my producers for not running away from that and running towards it. You know, some people just don't want to touch that kind of material. But I think once you decide to just do it, you have to like forget all of that. You have to not wonder about reception. And I think that's kind of like every artist's job, like just keep the voice in your head as loud as possible. And so I think we really wanted to stay true to Francoise's writing. That's why it was really important to us that her son was really involved in the film. Like I said earlier, I wanted this to be an additive to the world of Bonjour Tristesse and its various adaptations. And so I kind of used it as an opportunity to give more runway to some of the characters that I felt could use some contemporary love. That was one way for me to make it mine.
For what it's worth, I have, and now I'm going to, I never read Bonjour Tristesse. Tristesse, thank you, Tristesse. And I have not seen the original film, so I'm dying to see it now. But having seen this, it really has a vision. You really brought, I mean, it feels visually and also just in terms of the poignancy of the characters and the melancholy come through in such a skilled way. I mean, you know, whatever it is in terms of that merging, you really did find something because it works on its own terms for someone who's just discovering it, just by way of feedback. So, yeah,
that's great to hear. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you, I guess I want to ask in terms of how you found the visual style, because the visual style is, when we think of directors, of course, you think about, well, how they think about, you know, how to film something, or, you know, how long to hold a shot, or, you know, where to come in on a scene. And your instinct on that is incredible, particularly from someone who hasn't held the camera, as it were, before. So I guess how did you evolve that? Because it seems so skilled.
Thanks. Well, my cinematographer and I spent a lot of time, honestly, just watching films. Maximilian Pittner, he's based in Paris, so we would kind of have this movie club where we'd watch a movie. And then just get on a call and talk about it. And in talking about it, then invariably the script would come up, you know. I'm jumping forward a bit mentioning my cinematographer, but I mention that because so much of this process has honestly been about just getting to know the people that were going to make the film and finding our language. Because the visual language of the film evolved constantly, you know, like you could be entirely planned and then day of you have to adapt.
Right.
To the weather, to whatever. And so what I figured out quite early on is as long as the people I'm building these images with, we have our language, we have our codes, we have our sense of humor. We can do it because we've built some kind of foundation. We've talked about certain shots. We've talked about certain filmmakers. We've talked about certain painters and photographers, and we can just like reference them on the fly. And so I think for me, what was really important was just getting to know the people I was going to work with, because then when you're there, you feel like you can forget everything and just go, you know? So it was just a lot of just getting to know the people I was making this film with. But prior to that, I mean, because this was my first film, everything about it was very unorthodox. Like my writing style in the script had camera movements, colors, palette, costume ideas that were just like built into the script. And I think that also made it sort of interesting for whoever was going to make the film with me, my production designer, my costume designer, my cinematographer, my editor, because I was really kind of building a three-dimensional world on the page for them. And then they could see how they could join that and make it better. And so I think that very unorthodox script in some ways, not that there's one way of doing anything, was also sort of a cue to anyone getting involved in this project of how I work and how I am really visual, and I see the camera movement and I want it on the page. So I think that was maybe helpful. And then, you know, I wanted to work with people who I felt value a frame the way that I do too, you know. like I mentioned, I was really keen on working with François Renaud-Labarthe, who is our production designer, because I was just such a fan of, and I've always been a fan of Olivier Assayas's films. And what I've always loved about his films is like when you're in someone's office or their home or their garden, you really learn so much about the characters in a single frame. And I find it really romantic.
It's true. It's true.
And so I was like, I have to work with him. The producer said, fine, sure, we'll figure it out. From the beginning, I had a really strong sense of who I wanted to build this world with. And honestly, who I wanted to learn from, because I was going to be the least experienced person on this set.
Which is great to surround yourself with people who are, you know.
Right. You have a vision of what you want, but how to actually make that come to play is going to be your collaborators in many cases. And you've chosen some great people here. I mean, the production design and the costume design, there's a timelessness to the film but there's also it's like hints of period.
Yes. Yes.
With the costumes and yet not.
Right, because then the cell phone comes out occasionally. There's a couple of times, right? But it has the palette.
Like a bathing suit. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh yeah, I could see that in the 50s, and yet no, it's also very modern. But that really comes through, and I think it's one of the wonderful attributes of the film, that it has that sort of timelessness.
Yeah, I think that was a word that we used a lot with my costume designer, Miyako Belize, who also was the only name I had on my list of one for my producers when I said who I wanted to work with. I had long admired her work, her knowledge of not just fashion history, but costume design history. She's just like an archive. She and I talked a lot about the word classic and timeless. A combination of us just loving movies. Like, we just love movies. And so we love a dress moment in a film, and we wanted a dress moment in our film. I think every film I make going forward will somehow be a movie about making movies. And maybe a lot of directors feel this way. So there's like this meta quality where you put a dress in your film because you love the way Audrey Hepburn enters in Sabrina in her dress. There's
the fashion is a huge part of this. I mean, it's not a small. Yeah. I mean, there's a timeliness, but the designs, what the women are wearing.
It starts from Anne, right? Like the character herself is a fashion designer,
right?
And so I wanted to really, in a very practical way, reflect that. You don't want to watch a film where you say this is someone's job, and then you see what they make and you're like, oh, they're not very good at this. Like that dress moment had to be earned. Like, wow, she's up to something, and she has a sophistication, and she has a project that clearly has created fans. And so that also was an element of it. And we worked with a friend of ours who's a fashion designer, this Lebanese designer, Cynthia Merhaj, to really talk about silhouette and this moment and fabric and credit to Miyako, like choosing a sort of fabric that would make sense during a night shoot and would capture light, like these sort of details. Like working at a detail level is really important for her. And again, I learned so much from her because of that. Back to the timelessness, I think a lot of it just might have been also my own personal taste. Like, I remember at one point being like, we're only having one pieces, no bikinis. I don't know. It was just like there was something classic about the silhouette and a sort of confidence I felt you could gain from that. And then other things, again, were quite practical. Like, it's a film with a lot of sitting and talking. So we talked about necklines. How do you choose something in a kind of very statuary scene that will be memorable? So you think about like the sternum area of a woman when you think of elegance. Like, it was all a lot of it was practical, honestly, which might speak to the classic nature of it, actually.
Right. And I mean, I'm aware of the fact that also, just talking about the clothing, just as that Chloe is also a fashion icon, I mean, in many ways. And I wonder, that's an interesting element.
But in the casting, right. Once you've cast Chloe, you kind of have to match that as well.
I mean, Chloe, she's an icon for sure. She's also a director, so she has... she sees it all. Like, so even just beyond the costume design, she understood the choices her character would make in terms of would she arrange with these flowers this time of year? What kind of car would she be driving? Like, she's very thorough in building her character, especially a character that is sort of sublime and has so much like style built into how she walks through the world. Yeah, again, like I just like listened if she had questions about or hesitations, like, you know, you kind of have to, once you cast your actors, you give the character to them.
Yes, you have to hand it over at some point. Right. I have a friend who directed a 12th Night recently in town, and he was telling me that he said to the cast, he said, for the first 2 weeks, I know more about the play than you do. And then after that, you know much more than I do. And, you know, and so there is a transference, right, that goes on.
Yes.
The thing that's so interesting to me is, you know, one day I got an email, and now you're directing
10
a movie.
years later,
and now
you got a movie.
You wrote it and you directed it, and it was not an aspiration per se, or maybe even something you even imagined. But, you know, being a director is sort of to some degree, it's an abstraction, because it's a myriad of skills, right, of which you've just spoken to, and I wonder, clearly this is something that you're really gifted at, whether you trained for it or not. Clearly, this is you found. You found something that's really that you're great at, and I guess I just wonder, in terms of as you imagine what a director needs in terms of skills, you know, how would you describe it now?
One thing I learned in this process is, especially when you're making, you know, independent film, and it's just a series of choices every step of the way, you know, you really want to find people who want to be there with you, because it takes forever.
They're not doing it for the money.
Yeah.
More often than not.
Yeah.
More often than not.
And it seems like a really simple answer to your question, but I've been thinking a lot about it recently, because I remember when I was in post-production, a friend of mine was also making her first film at the same time, and we would have these intermittent phone calls where we just check in on each other, you know? And I remember, you know, having insecure moments and saying, like, what if no one ever sees this? What if it just, we make it and nothing comes of it? And she was like, well, did you make the movie you wanted to make? And how do you feel about the experience of making it? And the experience of making it is filled with me personally with so much love that whenever I think about my time on set, I think about my crew, I think about certain individuals I would spend lunches with, I think about having my son there with me. I have all these memories that really helped me grow as an artist, but honestly have given me like a second wind as a person. And so the value of that is so important, and I have no regrets there. And I really had to be present in order to have those memories the way that I have them, and have them so like richly hued in my mind, that I think that's an element of being a director, is making sure that you're very aware of every individual who is there making it with you, and you're tapped into them, because you only get this finite amount of time to do it. I think there were moments where I would look at my producers and be like, this might be the first and last film I ever make. And I think that in some ways was a good way for me to make this, because you don't squander anything. And you also, there's a strange way of lightness to it. You let a few things go. You don't hold on too tightly. In the edit, sometimes I intentionally picked a take I wasn't crazy about, because I felt like, well, this one will grow on me, and the one I like in this moment I'll get over very fast, you know? So it's also kind of like maybe thinking you're a little psychic or something.
Yeah, that's
interesting.
That's really interesting. Yeah. I mean, and that, again, maybe that comes from your years of writing and looking back at a page and writing something and then coming back to it and going, actually better than I thought. That's
you have to have a little faith in the future you, I guess.
That's lovely. That's lovely.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah.
The pacing of the film. It's perfectly matched in the sense that you have that feel of summer and beach and vacation, and
endless summer. Yeah,
just, you know, the sort of non-rushed quality of it. Was that something you had in mind as the script was coming together, or did that really come together in the edit? Or did I
Definitely
totally misread the film?
No, not at all. In fact, I'm happy that's your reaction to it, because in some ways it is a very slow film by design.
It's not slow, but just relaxed.
It brings your heart rate down as you go with it. It just
even as things of drama are happening, it just feels okay.
Right, you're just breathing differently.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, right. Yeah. So talk about the pacing. Yeah, it's interesting.
Well, I think we wanted to. We were very aware we were making a summer film in the south of France, right? So there's this element of like capital E escape that you want to create. And how do you create escape? And for me personally, rhythm is like the most important thing as a writer and now as a filmmaker. I think it's kind of the only thing, rhythm. And so it was definitely something in the edit that we sort of, my incredible editor, Emily Labreche, we've found together, again, like how I was talking about my other heads of department, like a lot of conversations and just spending time on the couch in her edit suite and getting to know each other. It's like we developed for this film a heartbeat that we then kind of decided this was the heartbeat for the film and we would build it together. And so some of that was in the edit. But I think a lot of it too was, like you mentioned, it's set in the summer and it's not a very accelerated time in one's life. And we're also dealing with a young woman who, instead of spending all her time partying with young people, is observing adults. And sort of that level of voyeurism to me happens in a decelerated rhythm, not acceleration, you know?
Yes.
And the book was written in the first person, and the Preminger version has narration, and a choice we made very, very, very early on. I think even in the outline stage of writing the script with my producers was I was not going to have voiceover. So how do you sort of capture interiority and a young woman's point of view without literally telling the audience where to look, you know, using the camera, using her own very specific way of hearing and seeing the world. And to me, that felt slowed down. It's sometimes I think we made a movie where, is this what she's experiencing, or is this her memory of Anne? Is this her memory of Elsa? And that sort of liminal space, one subconscious, kind of helped us find a rhythm that we felt could capture that, but also enhance the sort of escapism feel we wanted.
Yeah.
Escapism, interesting, because the characters at some level are trapped by the past. Or they want to, but they're not escaping the. Well, I know.
The other thing that I so appreciated, and again, I'm so eager to see the original movie, but you don't play into any of the stereotypes. You know, is he a playboy? But you don't really. He's a lover, you know, as it were. And the stepmother is not the evil stepmother. She's a sophisticate and she's complex. But you really sort of worked in kind of complex colors as opposed to sort of playing to stereotypes. And I wonder how much of that was in the original and what you brought out, because what's there in this film is quite complex and lovely.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that I wanted to keep sort of top of mind, because like you mentioned, some of these characters, an audience can come in with their own sort of assumptions of who this person is, you know? So it's really quite like a delicious challenge to subvert that, you know? I think my way in, honestly, was, like I mentioned earlier, was finding other characters to focus on, you know? Elsa in the book and in the Preminger version, in some ways, is kind of one note, you know? And I was like, oh, here is a woman of a certain age who I think we can do a lot more with. And then in building her up, then you put her in a scene with someone else, and then her impact on them kind of switches up any tropes that people might be familiar with, because she herself is such a person.
Yes,
who
not a prop.
Refused.
Right.
Yeah, not
and
a
she's
prop.
She's not a kind of an anvil of the story. She's complicated, and you care about her, and you like her, and you feel for her, and she's wise, and she's interesting.
Yeah, she's wise. Yeah. I personally love in movies, like, never ask me what a movie's about or if I liked it. But also, I have this, like, probably infuriating quality for, like, latching on to a character that you meet for 5 minutes. I just love those characters in films. I love meeting someone and then disappearing for the rest of the film. I love a secondary character having like one of those 4-minute scenes where like they crack the code to life. For me, that again, like I said, I'm going to always be making movies about movies is like in some ways Elsa and Natalie, even Cyril's mother, are two women that to me represent like my love of movies. They're like my tribute to those characters and those scenes that have kind of altered me as an audience member and a writer. And so to answer your question, sort of one way of avoiding sort of stereotypes was I just didn't think about it. And I just kind of turned my attention to characters that I wanted to give more love to. And then just because it's like reaction, action scenes and characters, they affect the other characters and their journeys too.
Yeah, that again, I think that sense of confidence to do that has to come from your writing, just knowing how a story is structured and how the influence of the arc of the story comes from all the elements, as it were, because it would be. With a very dynamic story with, 3 or 4 major characters who are driving the story, it would be very easy to get stuck there. And your ability to be comfortable with the other characters and let them sort of bleed in, as it were, is great. Really
and also having, honestly, again, the confidence of the people working with you, the trust. Like, let me do this scene. Let me go ahead and give this character who's kind of nothing in the book a big moment, If you don't have like the team around you who are like, okay, try it, then, those ideas get kind of killed before they get a chance to even enter an edit suite, so.
What was it like working with the actors?
Or the casting process.
And the casting process,
the casting process. So the film had many lifetimes, but funnily enough, a lot of the casting was a long time in the making, even if it wasn't like acted on. I remember when my producers they came to my home one evening. They flew in to kind of go over my outline, honestly, just to see like where I was going to take the film. And after they read my outline for it, one of my producers, Katie, was like, I could really see Chloe as Anne. She just said it, like so much of our process is someone just saying something, us forgetting about it, and then like years later it happening or whatever.
Wow. Casting,
it almost feels like the last thing you do when you make a film because you have so much you have to make happen before you can ask someone to move their lives to another country or whatever. And so,
well, you were asking them to go to the south of France. So
right.
Let's not make such a sacrifice here.
You're right. We were saying,
and it looks so luscious. Yeah.
Yes, you're right. We weren't like twisting their arm or anything. But so yeah, she was always on our mind. Mm-hmm. And there were earlier drafts actually where that never ended up anywhere near like a shooting script, where I'd kind of developed and inspired a little bit by Chloe's story, the type of woman Anne was, her upbringing, what her youth might have been like versus where she is now in her career and stuff. With Claes, he always kind of was a name that we really were curious about. His like, honestly, like I loved the idea of making a very international film, and I didn't care about accents. I didn't care if like the father and the daughter don't have the same accent. Like none of that stuff mattered to me ever. And so, we were all fans of his work, and he's so handsome.
So handsome. God, those eyebrows. Wow. That guy is so handsome.
And you need Raymond to be someone who, even if you don't get it, you get it kind of thing. That's kind of a little bit of his sweet spot, I think, as a character.
Yeah.
So we had long conversations, and he was very excited by the father-daughter relationship, and he was really excited by the elements of potential taboo that we weren't really going to explore, but are potentially kind of there. And the book had some of that, but like, let's not address it, but let's address it. And then just getting to know Lily and then figuring it out finally when we cast her. So a lot of it was found sometimes like day of, but casting Claes was always like very exciting for us. So when he agreed, we were just like thrilled. I'd actually known Lily for a very long time, because when I graduated from college and I was working and then trying to find extra work, a friend of mine, she had 2 cousins who needed someone to kind of like babysit, watch them. New York kids don't really need to be babysat. And it was Lily and her brother.
No kidding.
Wow.
Oh Oh my goodness.
Roger. Yeah. And so they're just like the coolest. And I just kind of kept tabs and like, what was she up to, where she was going to school, what she was studying. She started doing theater, and she just has this, she's just extraordinary, and her face and her physicality, it was just something, you have a feeling like she's perfect for this role. Her and I kind of found a language for Cecile. Like, she's a little feral, but also elegant, and those kind of extremes suited Lily, frankly. And so we built on that.
That's such a precise way of explaining it. That's such a precise way. And did you say that to her, or did you let that?
Yeah, we were very comfortable. We were very comfortable being very specific, because you don't have a lot of time, you know. So right. I've said this before, but sometimes she reminds me of like Popeye's olive oil, like her lanky quality.
Gangly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she's even dressed like her in one of the scenes. But then she's also like Audrey Hepburn, like this like deer, and this elegance, and she's so classic. And then a friend of mine actually recently saw the film and said something about Lily's face, and I think it's so accurate and sweet. She called her like a garlic bulb. Like, the shape of her face is like a garlic bulb. Oh. And I mention it because there is something about her face that just like is luminous and takes up the whole screen and is so specific. And sometimes, you've seen the film, there's so many scenes where we're just with her.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And you really need an actor who can do a lot with stillness. And I think Lily can do that. So it was just exciting when she
does.
Said yes.
Yeah. The thing is that it's interesting because they are both such beautiful people, Klaus and Lily, and physically so striking, as you say, luminous on screen. Sometimes you have actors who are really arrestingly beautiful, and there's the teeniest bit of self-consciousness or self-awareness about that, and to me it always kind of it just tilts the balance for me, and I suddenly I'm not quite as engaged. Both of them are so beautiful and so arresting, and
almost effortlessly so they don't have to
right. There's no self-consciousness. There's no and it plays into that summer thing, right? That whole sense of kind of just lazy summer, and you just can't take your eyes off them. All right. It's really that's such a wonderful. I mean, and that's in the casting. Honestly, I mean, obviously these actors are skilled and will have wonderful careers. But that's something that either you guarded against, or you helped them with, or that you found, or that you picked them because of. But it really. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, they found it too together. We'd play cards, or I would. You know what it was? It's actually what I was talking about before. Like, we found a language too. Like, there's one scene near the beginning where I always called it like my cowboy scene. Like, these are two cowboys at the end of their day of sharing a cigarette, just talking, and they're under the moonlight. And I've always loved father-daughter films, and I've always felt like fathers and daughters are kind of like cowboys. I can't really explain it, but it's them in the Wild West. And I would say that to Claes and Lily, like, this is the cowboy scene. And I don't even know if they knew what I was saying. I don't even know if I knew what I was saying. But in that space, there's an interpretation happening, and I trust them, and I trust their experience, and I trust their artistry first and foremost. And they did something with that, you know? So again, it's like speaking in code. And if you can create that code and then use it on set when you're in hour whatever of shooting.
Right.
And you don't have a lot of time, it's really helpful. It like expedites something that is urgent, but doesn't rush them. You know, you don't want to use a lot of words in the moment.
That's exactly right. I sometimes feel like between take 2 and take 3, you know, where you have a moment where it's like, cut, okay, let's just reset. That's where the director comes in and then can literally just say a couple of things, and suddenly then you open and it happens, and you clearly crack the code, as you say. That's just great.
Yeah, it's a terrific film. You know, it's a film that's been missing from the market, a type of film that's been missing from the marketplace for a long time. You know, an adult, thoughtful, and yet entertaining drama. And I'm just really hopeful that people find it. So we're going to be opening on May 2nd, and I believe it's going to be open nationwide at that point. So you are going to be at the theater in New York?
Yes, I am.
Okay, terrific.
What theater is it opening in New York?
IFC.
Excellent, excellent,
right.
excellent.
And we're going to be opening in multiple theaters here in Los Angeles and again at other places around the country. So you can find out where it's going to be opening at Greenwich Entertainment on their website, the distributor. I don't know if the film has its own website.
I think we're on Greenwich for now, but, all of us are sharing as much as we can as we get more information. So on our own social media or whatever.
Fabulous, fabulous.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're focused very much on the opening of this, but I sure hope that you do another film.
Thank you. I hope so too. Yeah. We have a couple other scripts that I've done that we want to just, how it is, like which one will go first and which one will never happen or something.
Right.
There's a tremendous amount of intuition that's brought to bear in the film, and I know you want to give your collaborators a lot of credit, but the fact that you gave them that space to work with is to your credit as well. I'm thinking back to our conversations with Stephen Susi about Merchant Ivory and how, James Ivory, felt like he did very little, and yet by doing very little in many cases he did so much.
That's so true. That's so true.
So, and this is not a Merchant Ivory film for those who
I love Merchant Ivory films.
Well, and maybe it does share something of their films, but you again, you are who you are, and you've brought a lot of you to this film. When I think back to films about young female sexuality, which at some level you can say that this film is about, films like the adaptation of Marguerite Duras, The Lover, and some other pictures, not coming from female filmmakers, they tend to focus more on the sensationalism of the story. And here, I think you've allowed it to just be natural, which it is, and that really makes for a beautiful and meaningful film for me.
100%. It really, we're with you every step of the way. Yeah.
Thank you. That actually means a lot because I totally stole a line from Marguerite Duras' The Lover and put it in my film.
Nice job, then. That's great. What's the line?
It's when Anne and Raymond are making the bed, and she tells him that they're talking about Elsa, and he says to her, your memory of men is never as illuminated as your memory of women. And there's a line from The Lover that is basically almost entirely that. So
that's great.
I swiped it, and it's a line
nice work,
that
I don't know how I came across that. I don't know how I came across that. Well, it's an ad anyway. Well, look, we'll save this for another conversation because I think it could be a very valuable conversation. But yeah, I think this is, look, it's really just fabulous. Terrific.
Thank you so much.
I'm so happy that you finally accepted the producer's push to say that not only that we needed a new version of Bonjour Tristesse, but that you were the person to bring it to the screen.
Thank you so much.
Thanks to producers.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, in this case, right. Really, bravo to them for what they saw in you and how they brought it out. So,
I just want to say thank you to you both because taking the time to have a conversation like this and supporting films of our size, kind of the most important thing. So it really means a lot to all of us who made the film, and to have like thoughtful conversations around the process of making a film is really nice because it also gives us a moment of reflection on what we made. So thank you.
Oh, well, really? Thank you. I mean, look, these are films that are worthy of thinking. I mean, they're films, as it's happening, you're just hearing a story and it's washing over you. But I think there's a lot to appreciate in this film, and there's a lot to think about. Whether it's before seeing the film or after seeing the film, I hope people do find their way to this podcast because I think it enhances the appreciation of the film and certainly whets my appetite for more.
I want to go see the film again.
Absolutely.
Great.
And we'd like to thank you for joining us here on Inside the Art House. If you enjoyed this episode, please like it, please subscribe, please share. Again, the film Bonjour Tristesse opening May 2nd in theaters around the United States. Look for it.
Thanks for joining us. See you next time.
Thank you, Durga.
Thank you so much.
Our show is produced by Raphael Sparge with on-site producer Marin Dickerson. Supervising producers are Miles McCreary and Thomas Cassetta. Our show is edited by Gabriel Lemon and mixed by Thomas Cassetta. Our musical theme was composed by Isabel England and Gerardo Garcia Jr. Marketing by Gabriel Lemon. Show graphics by Jenna DeAngelis and show open edited by Rick Pratt. Filmed at the historic Lumley Royal Theater in Los Angeles, California. See you next time on Inside the Art House. If you like today's show, please consider subscribing to our channel to hear more on Inside the Art House.